everyone. I'm Maggie Henderson Davis. I'm a volunteer with MICA, the Mental Illness Caregivers Association. I have with me today George Thwaites, who's also a volunteer with MICA. George has written many poems, and they're lovely. They're so emotive. They talk about the love between parent and child, between two adults, our acceptance of one another, our human desire to fly, whether it be physically or emotionally. So I have George here with me today, and he's going to read a couple of poems that he's written. But before he does that, I'd like to find out more about those poems. So, hello George.
Hello.
How are you?
All right.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. So you're going to read to us a couple of poems. I walk alone and I walk with you. So can you tell me, George, what was the impetus for writing this? What was behind your thinking when you were writing these poems?
Scary that might be. First, mental health has always been important to me, and increasingly important over the last 10 years or so, as I've got to better appreciate mental health, mental illness, what it means as for individuals, what it means for society at large. And I think certainly the pandemic that we're living through right now has underscored the importance of dealing with mental health as individuals, but also in working together as a community and with friends, with family. So just generally, that's my modus operandi in terms of my interest in mental health. So as a poet, 2 years ago when I wrote these poems, I just read a true story about written by a man whose one of his friends had just died. And this story was about their friendship and about their respective mental health challenges that they're facing during this friendship, and the sadness that went with it, the joy and the sadness that went into this friendship as a result of these mental illness challenges that they're both facing. And it really touched me. And so when I sat after reading the story and thinking about it, I decided to write the first one I call "A Walk Alone," from the perspective of the person facing mental illness. And I tried to put into words what that person must feel like, even in the face of others being around to support them. About 10 days later, I realized the story wasn't finished, and something was still missing. I had more of this that I was still feeling, and I decided to write the other one, "I Walk With You," from the perspective of the person who was trying to be with that person with mental illness, knowing that despite the love, despite the friendship, whatever was there existing between them, whatever the motivation was, that there was connection, but there was not a true connection all the time, just because that original person facing the mental illness was alone, was facing their own unique challenges. And so the first one, "I Walk Alone," was perspective of one, or "Walk With You" was the perspective of the other, and was the motivation. It was simply driven by a true story and my interest in the subject.
Sounds lovely. So, it sounds as though anyone can write a poem. Is that so?
Well, there's no one set of rules for anybody. If you choose, to me, anybody can write one. If you have a feeling and you want to express it, poetry is a lovely way of doing it. I started writing poetry probably more seriously about 3 years ago, and I realized this interested me. I certainly didn't follow any rules until I had to, and certainly if I was interested in writing a certain type of poetry, a sonnet, well, there's a certain structure to a sonnet, for instance. Okay, well then I have to write to that rule. But other than that, as I've said to a grade 5 class that I was speaking to about poetry, there's no rules. Just write what you feel, write what you have to say, and let the rest of it take care of itself.
Wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, George Thwaites and his two poems.